think about Nigerians' democracy?
It's fragile. It's a new baby, and I think the passion in us will build it up over time, and I think we're okay. What we need to do is the government on its part needs to do a lot of sensitization and campaign to the society and citizens on the citizens' rights and obligations. If you want to, sustainability is effectiveness of rule of law that's on the part of the government, so as to guide and control the functioning of the system itself. Then I think in the government treating with justice its citizens and also respect their rights, that brings up trust. Then respect and compliance to the rule of law on the side of the citizens too brings, when they see a government respecting the rule of law and a government that allows for free and fair elections, most especially, the trust in the system and belief in democracy enters into the societal mind. You see why I want to emphasize on the trust. The trust is key. It is the key characteristic of an effective leadership. Over time, people I've spoken to, a lot of people I've met and asked questions about good leadership. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is trust. For the more people I have spoken to, it's trust they always say. I can see that leadership ultimately comes down to creating conditions and trust within an organization or a society or a group of people that leader is manning. Good leaders are people who are trusted by their followers. And how do you take control? How do you create that trust? And to create that trust usually is when a leader has a clear mission and statements. Selfless service, not self-serving. When you have leaders that serve selflessly, those are the kind of leaders that the society and the people and the citizens trust. If you build that trust and you prepare your followers in training them and giving them all they need to get the job done, when you do that, you create a lot of trust in between the leaders and the led. Don't give them the job if you know you can't give them the resources to deliver. Don't even start by giving them the job if you don't have the mind to give them the resources to deliver on the task given to them. And that you should be prepared to take the risk with them. And so also most of the times you find out that when the society or when the led has trust or have trust in their leaders, it's usually out of curiosity, Neka. Usually it's out of curiosity. We have seen, we've tried you, we've worked under you. We saw that you are that person that has given us selfless service, not someone that is self-serving. This is someone that gives selfless service. When the society or an organization, anywhere you lead, sees you as someone with a clear mission and statements and selfless service, they tend to trust you. And once they trust you, you should be very careful again in no matter what happened, you should never appear to them as someone that, for example, that is cold, hungry, terrified. You should always learn to hide whatever it is, because of course, as a leader, there are days that you'll be cold, there are days that you'll be very hungry, there are days that you'll be terrified with a lot of things. These are things you should hide as a leader. Don't show the society or the led that you are terrified with a system, or that there is a broken system and you feel it cannot be fixed. In times like that, you need to put some pretense, pretend to them that all is okay, and you carry them along and you guys fix the problem. So I think it's just so easy. Our problem is we tend to vote in hooligans. We don't, in our electoral processes, we the led and we the people that vote for those leaders, we tend to do it based on, you're giving me money, I'm going out to vote for you. So the essence of democracy and of course the freedom of voting will be swept under the carpet. Of course, on the part of the leaders too and the government, sometimes they intimidate the voters. So in doing that, you tend to see voter apathy, and maybe when people come out, they are afraid to vote for a candidate of their choice. We must scrutinize and sensitize the process. Once that process is being scrutinized and sensitized, and people understand that they have the right to vote for one with character, we should always vote for people of integrity, people of character. Forget about partisanship, just as we did in Kano in 2019. Mazi is witness. I actually didn't vote for my party. I'm from the APC, but when I saw that the present governor had issues with pocketing dollars, NECA, I had to look out for the PDP candidate in Kano State. So I think our democracy is evolving, and a lot of things on the part of the government should be put in sensitization campaigns, and also on our own part too, we should do better in voting leaders with character and integrity.
Okay, let us listen to Prof. Prof, what do you think about the state of Nigeria's democracy?
Thank you. In a soft field of political science known as democratic studies, there is a concept called democratic consolidation. It simply means a stage in the process of a democratic experiment whereby it is considered sustainable. A point where you can say democracy has come to stay. This is against the background of an era when military coup was the order of the day, when political instability was the order of the day. And Nigeria happens to be a typical example of that era. Our first experiment with democracy post-independence was 1960 to 1966, when the military struck. From then, we remained under military rule in 1979, when the military returned to the barracks for just 4 years and a few months. By 1983, August, we were back to military rule, and we continued on that trajectory till 1999, May, when we once again returned to democratic rule. Using the template of democratic consolidation to interrogate the Nigerian experience as to whether democracy has been consolidated or not, the answer would be democracy has been consolidated, because there are two criteria that are used to confirm whether a democracy has been consolidated in a given political milieu or otherwise. One is successful transition from one class of the democratic of the political class, one section of the political class to another, especially transition from a ruling party to an opposition party when there has been a successful handover of power following a defeat of an incumbent party to an opposition party. That is one criterion to confirm that democracy is being consolidated in that environment. The second one is a 20-year uninterrupted democratic experience. That is, for 20 full years, there is nothing like military intervention, nothing like coup or counter-coup. You are experienced democratic stability, then it is assumed that democracy is being consolidated or has been consolidated in that environment. So just looking at that from what those who are experts in that subfield of political science have laid down or have laid out as criteria for measuring or ascertaining democratic consolidation, I would say, well, democracy seems to have been consolidated in Nigeria. It seems to have come to stay. But all that is theoretical. When you come to realities, you need to ask yourself, to what end is democracy itself? Is democracy an end in itself? If you have civilians wearing babariga and all kinds of kaftan, or wearing suits, or tying wrapper if they are from Niger Delta, or they are wearing red caps, or they are bending the edge of their native cap leftwards like the Yoruba would do, and they are the ones who are governors, they are the ones who are president, vice president, lawmakers, does it then mean if they are there for 20 years without the khaki boys, then we can say, oh, democracy indeed is a good form of government. It is yielding returns to the shareholders who are the voters. In the Nigerian case, the facts are there. They speak for themselves. When you look at basic economic indices, a lot of people are quick to tell you that things have degenerated. The dividends of democracy, so-called, seems to have remained a mirage. All available statistics mostly point to a negative trend, a downward spiral. Are you talking of insecurity? Aside the Civil War era, I don't think we've had it so bad at any time in the history of this country compared to now. You want to talk of national unity. How harmonious is the Nigerian polity and state? Again, it is no exaggeration to say that we have never been more divided than at this time. When we experience the Civil War, it can be simplistically, in a simplistic manner, be described as an attempt by a section of the country to secede. But today, you hear of Yoruba agitation for Oduduwa Republic and the renewed Biafra agitations, not by the older generations, but by the younger generation of Ndigbo, most of whom did not experience the Civil War and don't give a damn about any older person telling them, oh, we've experienced war before. They will tell you that, well, you may have experienced war before. We are not enjoying Nigeria. Since we were born, what is our benefit from being part of this country? You go to the Niger Delta, the era when the oil, volume of oil exported from this country plummeted from about 2.1 million barrels per day to 800,000 barrels are still fresh in our memory. The Asari Dokubos, the, what do you call them? General Africa, General Boylov, and all kinds of generals. They held the country at its jugular. And the jugular of this country is oil. That's all we rely on for our livelihood, a nation of over 200 million people. There was a time the boys out there said they will not be able to take it anymore. You go there, you feel sorry for them. You go to the creeks, I've been there a couple of times. you will want to tell God that, God, my hand no dey there. What they have done to these people, the way they have been neglected and the environment has been destroyed. You know, I've never been in government. I'm not involved because it's so callous. And then they are up till now. It's not as if they have completely removed their minds from the idea of breaking out of the country because they don't see any good thing accruing to them on account of being part of Nigeria. You go to the northern part of the country, you discover that the trend there is my own Sharia is better than your own Sharia. When Obasanjo newly got there as president, 12 states in the north, contrary to the secular provision of the Nigerian constitution, which clearly states there shall be no state religion, they introduced Sharia illegally. I'm not talking of the Sharia provisions embedded in the 1999 constitution already. They introduced a new dimension. I went to Niger State at that particular time, and I discovered that the hotel where I was lodging, beer was nowhere to be found. Not that I'm given to drinking beer, but it was obvious because they used to have lively bars, and those bars, they have all been shut down. You enter public transport, a bus, they tell you this section is for men, that section is for women. And a lot of commercial people running transport business, running hoteliers, they ran into a problem. Many of them, they were bankrupted because of that. And this thing was illegal. Those people too are telling you that they don't have faith in the country. That is just what it means. That this existing order as it is, we don't have faith in it. Then when they say, after that, then you have Boko Haram came. What is Boko Haram is saying? Boko Haram is saying the type of Sharia those people even introduce is nothing compared to what they have in mind. As far as those people are concerned, they are as good as infidels. And as if that was not enough, you have ISWAP, Islamic State of West African Province, they have also come. And what is their own agenda is religion still. So you discover that all over the country, whether north or south, there is distemper, there is dissatisfaction. So if we are saying, if I say, following the thesis of my colleagues who laid out 2 criteria for ascertaining democratic consolidation, if we go by that and say, oh, democracy is consolidated, the empirical situation in the country suggests otherwise, that the country is on a tinderbox. The democracy has not brought satisfaction. It has not transformed people from poverty, but it has only enriched the ruling class, the minute set of politicians who are in Abuja, who receive humongous salaries. And when you hear what some of them have accomplished materially, without establishing a factory or setting up a service industry, you will be amazed. So you will just discover that the democracy, you are asking whether democracy is, your question is whether it is being excellently executed or something.
My question was, what do you think about the democracy in Nigeria?
Okay, so that was a question that gave me a very wide latitude to navigate different angles of it. That is what I've done.
All right, let me just interject here. Still on you, Prof. So you're saying that from 1999 to date, our democracy has regressed rather than improved?
In terms of democracy, superficially has been sustained to the extent that we have not had that early dawn broadcast. Fellow Nigerians, Brigadier I, Brigadier so, in consultation and in conjunction with my fellow in the armed forces, have decided we are not hearing that, and we are not praying to hear that. To that extent, that no Sonny Abacha is waking us up with a coup broadcast, no General Joshua Dongoyaro, those are people that read coup broadcast. Abacha read it in December 31st, 1983. Joshua Dongoyaro read his own on August 27, 1985, and so on and so forth. So to the extent that we are not having such broadcasts in the past 20 years or so, 21 years or 22nd years now, we can say, well, superficially democracy seems to be the in thing. But in terms of what is called dividends of democracy, democracy, like I said, is not an end in itself. It's supposed to be a means to an end. Government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Why should it be government of the people? Because it is assumed that when the people themselves are in charge of their own affairs, they are going to transform their own lifestyle. They are going to improve their own conditions. But you discover that the democracy has been hijacked by a tiny elite who just turns the periodic voting to a kind of ritual, a rubber stamp for the masses to just come and rubber stamp their misrule. You know, they give you the impression that you are part of it, you are the one electing us. But in actual fact, they just need you to fulfill that constitutional requirement that people must come out every 4 years to come and perform this ritual. But they don't rely on you thereafter. They do whatever they like.
All right,
and they have a way of returning, even when you don't want them to be there. So to that extent, I will say democracy has not delivered on the expectations of the people. The expectation, the high expectation has led to rising frustration. So that is the reality on the ground. And by all in the index of human welfare, you discover that there is nothing to write home about. It's not about being pessimistic or trying to say negative things about one's country, but that is just the fact. I, as a professor, I know what I'm earning now is not up to $1,000. And how many years ago, a professor's salary was about $3,000 at the exchange rate, but right now it's not up to $1,000. So, and it's still the same market, and worse still, a lot of things we buy for our livelihood, they have hit the roof. Rice was 8,500 naira per bag some 6 years ago. Right now, it's in some places it's over 30,000, but the salary has not changed.
Thank you so much, sir. Let us hear from Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hassan, are you there?
I'm here, Nneka.
You had the submissions, please.
I'd like to advise Prof to think outside the box. Maybe you do small lecturing and do small politics on the side. Maybe by then you would understand our game, Mr. Prof. So still on Prof's submission. He's gone around, I think, all over the country, and he has touched almost 70% of the parts in crisis and the issues and challenges of the country. You see, Nneka, whether anyone likes it or not, we've gone so very far in democracy in the last 20 years. Of course, evolving in democracy is not a document, it's a process, and you leave it, you don't just put it on document and say this is how it should be. So, but of course, I think we're evolving and we are progressing in our democracy. And most importantly, Nick, and I would like Prof to also maybe expand on this. I think there is an issue of social contract theory that maybe we're lacking as a people. You see, the social contract theory is as old as philosophy itself. This is in view that persons' moral, political aspirations are dependent upon a contract or agreement among them to form a society in which they want to live. You see, when there is that social contract, a national purpose come into being. And when we have a national purpose as a people, our diversity and becomes a strength at some point. Because if everybody believes in Nigeria and believe in the kind of society we want, that's the national purpose.
Let me just interject here, Mr. Hassan, and permit me to interject here. This thing you said, this social contract just led to my next question. Now, in your previous submission, you talked about the trust that seems to be broken between the government and the people. How then can the government correct this to improve our democratic process?
It can. You know how? when there are verdicts from the courts, the government should follow the rule of law. That is very key. Whenever there are verdicts coming out from the judiciary, from the courts, especially against the government itself on an individual, a citizen, I think the government should follow it with respect and swiftness. Once it does that, the people will believe in the system. And the belief in the system will now bring up us to trust in the system. And once you trust the system, you as a citizen, you know that you have a part to also give as a citizen. That's patriotism. We will now start talking about patriotism, love for the country, love having a national purpose, and never go into that. No matter our differences, we know the kind of a society we want to live in. Nobody crosses a red line, There should be red lines that no one crosses, And by then we would believe in one Nigeria. At least if there is social contract and people are truly and genuinely put into this engagement and agreement. I am sure. And there is fairness from the part of the government. You treat your citizens with fairness, justice. Wherever part anybody comes from, treat them with fairness and justice. When the government is seen to be doing all these things, I assure you, Ineka, the trust from the led will start coming up. And where you think the trust will of the led comes up is when you see the society and the people supporting its government. So I think we will be there. I am very optimistic about Nigerian democracy. I'm very optimistic that we have this commitment to a better society. All we need to do is to have good leaders in place that would set the path for us to follow.
Let us hear from Prof. Prof, do you think that if the social contract is actually followed and the rule of law is followed, it's going to be a prelude to quenching some of these agitations in the various parts of the country?
Well, that's a question that needs to be unbundled. When you talk about social contract, a contract means you have a pact that the people consciously enter into that is clearly spelled out. What are the duties of those who are signing that contract, the voters, and what are the obligations the politicians or those that will govern them should also render towards the voters. But in the Nigerian context, do we really seriously have a social contract? In a situation where even the parties do not have internal democracy, where you see parties being divided and being blown up because candidates are being imposed. So that is a fundamental flaw. Then you come to the era of the aspect of the general election. Do people's votes really count? For a very long time, it hardly counts. We've had a situation where cases go to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court would we find a situation where the number of those who voted are even more than the number of the entire registered voters. That happened. Yes, that happened in the case of President Buhari and President Obasanjo versus Buhari, when the case went to the Supreme Court. Was it not in 2003?
2003, yeah.
The Supreme Court had to set aside results from two states, my state, Ogun, because those who voted in that state were more than the total number of registered voters. The the voter register that was already bogus, there was nothing to what writing home about. Yet the purported voters were more than the figures. Mike Tyson was in that voter register at that time. Mike Tyson was there. Bill Clinton was there in our own voter register. Have you forgotten? And then you talk about River State. River State result too was set aside because the number of voters more than double the number of the people that registered in another bogus voter register. And it was that part. It doesn't mean that the remaining 34 states of the Federation were better. It's just that there was an overreach in those two states. In the other places, it was the same thing. So when elections are not even credible, there is no basis to start talking of a social contract between me and you. It's like you have a slave and you have his master, and you are saying there is a social contract between them. The contract is that of a master to his slave. So that is why our leaders don't behave like they owe us anything, because they know that they actually did not derive their mandate from us. So I would rather want to say, in order for us to have a proper social contract, the issue of the electoral law amendment should be looked into seriously. And every measure that can be taken to make votes to count should be undertaken. The foundation of a proper social contract in Nigeria will be laid when those who are in power know that they owe it to the electorate. And if they don't do the right thing, they don't satisfy the expectation of the electorate.
Absolutely.
In another election, they will be removed. Or democracy even makes provision for them to be recalled or impeached when they are misbehaving so terribly that the people cannot afford to keep them there to the next election. Legislators can be recalled. But how many of our people can invoke this thing when it is these same politicians they wait for over the weekend? Or
Prof, if we even have good people in leadership positions, they tend to even resign if they see that things have overpowered them. If they see things they cannot do, in that kind of manner, a lot of them will resign and say, "I cannot do it. Bring somebody else." So I think our problem is, sorry to cut you, Prof. Our problem is the way and manner we pick our leaders. We actually need to change our thinking. The government needs to do a lot in campaigning and sensitizing people in the way and manner we vote for our leaders. It should be based on character, competence, and integrity. Once we look at that, I think we would pick out a bit. We kick out a bit of all those hooligans out of the system.
Especially when you allow the vote to count. Many Nigerians don't bother to even register. They will say, will my votes count? Will it count? Because they've gone to, I served once.
That is lack of trust. Lack of trust.
Yes, because of the realities people have seen, that when they vote, it doesn't count. So that is why electoral reforms is highly imperative. But aside that, aside the issue of votes and democracy and all that, the fundamental structure of the country is also defective. There are issues of inequality, institutionalized injustice, some perceived and some real, in the sense that I cited the case of Niger Delta. By what criteria should Niger Delta states be entitled only to 13% of their oil resources? In the First Republic, it was 50% that goes, in terms of derivation, that goes to derivation. But by some magic, in the era of military rule, where you have a preponderance of people from non-oil producing areas in power, and they saw how juicy oil is, they altered that revenue allocation. And that has destroyed the economy of this country to the extent that everybody now rely on oil. Even the North will have gone far, 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 far ahead from where it is today. The north of Ugranot pyramids, and that was feeding itself and sending food and cattle elsewhere. It's now a shadow of itself. And the Southwest that did not have an ounce of oil was the pace setter, not only in Nigeria, in Africa. So we need to go back to that era so that there will be social justice. Because the environmental degradation ongoing in the Niger Delta today will linger for generations to come, even after oil might have gone. How do you reclaim that environment? So these are some of the things that are also creating a lot of threats to the democratic survival of this country. And they are real. We need to sit down. If we want to fine-tune this democracy, there is need for an opportunity for people to come and let us have a pact as a people. Let us have a constitutional contract before we talk of a social contract. As a people, what type of Nigeria do we want to be part of? Let the Yoruba people come. Let the Hausa, Fulani, Igbo. Everybody is complaining. Nobody is exempted. Nobody. I see a lot of people in the north there who are Fulani saying the Buhari is the worst thing that ever happened to them. And Absolutely. When you are talking at your own hand that Buhari is anti-Yoruba, and you hear them say that also, you wonder that, what's wrong with these people? So it shows that everybody is unhappy. No group in this country is satisfied. And I did a master's in peace and conflict studies. There is what we call conflict progression and conflict escalation. It's not the day that people become disgruntled, that they start shooting. It's not the same day that they will say, we are erecting a flag of a new nation. You will see what we call early warning signs. There are early warning signs, EWS, that Nigeria is headed for an implosion. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not a prophet of doom, but it is written all over this country now. And there is need for us to come to a table. Others have proposed it. What we need is a kind of constitutional contract before a social contract. What type of constitution do we want? That is, how do we want to belong to this country? Let the Igbo man come and say, this is, because everybody is entitled to relate with you the way he wants. It shouldn't be imposed. I shouldn't impose myself on you. If I want to be your friend, or you want to be my friend, we should be able to define the terms. So, and that is what this country urgently needs. It will diffuse tension. It will de-escalate conflict, and it will enable us to start on an harmonious, to start all over again on an harmonious note. But right now, most people feel that they are being shortchanged in the country. And it's not limited to the South, it's all over North too.
Thank you. Let us go back to Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hassan.
Yes.
Now, in the previous submission, you mentioned something about the way leaders are selected affected our democracy. Now, looking at 2023, how can the citizens influence political parties to actually pick their candidates that have merit and the other dividends, that other virtues that you mentioned before? How can the citizens influence political parties to do this?
Yeah. You see, that is why I am in support of the direct primaries, even in the political parties. When Prof was talking about electoral reforms, I also want to add on the political party reforms, because it is in the political party that you have a process of picking people that will lead us. I think when there is a political party reform, such that every political party that is going for primaries to choose its leaders has to adopt direct primaries in choosing leaders, then it means everybody that belongs to that party can come in and line up and vote for whosoever they want to aspire and hold the ticket of their party to the general elections. I think it's a very good idea, and only if the president signs it, it will come it will become one of the greatest things this government has ever done to Nigerians. Because NECA, you see, if you talk about primaries, indirect primaries, those delegates you see are being managed and elected by governors. Those are the kind of people we got from the recent congresses the APC went to. It is the governors that handpicked the people they put as delegates. So if you're going to primaries in a political party, it is the same governors that will pick people they like and tell the delegates to go and vote for them. But that's an indirect primary. But when you have a direct primary, it is us, the people belonging to any political party, can come to their party primaries, line up and vote for who they feel has a good character, capacity, and integrity to occupy the positions of power. Hello, Neka.
Yes, I can hear you. Professor.
Yes.
Now, how can Nigeria actually improve their leadership process? You heard what he said. Do you also support the direct primaries?
Well, I have seen that politicians are at each other's throat over the issue of direct or indirect primaries. Sorry. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
What is the difference? My own take on this is that it shouldn't be a matter for legislation at the National Assembly. Why should they venture into that? It's like taking away the powers of the political parties or the freedom of Nigerians to associate politically. Each party should be allowed to decide how they want to elect their candidates. That is what direct or indirect primaries, that's what it's all about. Some parties are not, some smaller parties, they lack resources for elaborate logistics, because indirect primary means a motley crowd from different wards across the country will be involved. You know, it's going to be like
no, that's a direct primary, Prof. That's a direct primary.
That is, sorry. Yes, I know, sorry. I'm just missing it up. Direct primary is like a mini general election.
Absolutely.
Whereas the indirect primary is what is a collegiate thing. It's like a college, electoral college sort of thing.
Electoral college, yeah, true.
A handful of electors.
True.
So some parties that are not so well endowed, some smaller parties that are just coming up, they lack the resources for that elaborate jamboree called direct primaries. So it should be left to each political party to decide what method they want to adopt. Let me give you an illustration. In 1999, I was the political assistant of late Chief Bola Ige, who founded the Alliance for Democracy. As a matter of fact, if the original documents, the draft document of that party, I was the one who kept them in his library. And I was with him campaigning all over the place to popularize that party. When the primaries were to be done, let me limit my focus to the 6 Southwest states, because that was the primary base of Alliance for Democracy. 4 states conducted what you may call direct primaries of sorts. Lagos, Ogun, Ekiti, and Ondo. But 2 states adopted what you would call indirect primary, Osun and Oyo State. Those 2 states used to be one state, Oyo State, when Bola Ige was the governor in Second Republic. It was Bola Ige's influence that made that indirect primary the in thing for the 2 states, because he told them that, look, if we are to allow direct primaries here, all these money bags hovering around us, they are going to get a candidate upon us in each of those states that we never bargained for. Those who never were with us from ideologically, who do not share our vision, they will just become our candidates. That let us do the indirect one. And that was what they did. And that was what produced two poor men as governorship candidates. They eventually got elected. Shibisi Akonde in Osun and the late Alhaji Lam Adesina in Oyo. I don't think Lam Adesina had a functional vehicle on the road at that time, while Bisi Akonde had a rickety Land Rover that I and Bola Ige were laughing at when he came to SLK to take us on Osun campaign. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is, AD didn't have money. We did not have money. But we had a name. But the PDP people were being funded by the military. And Obasanjo was their candidate. So if we were to follow their route at that time, we would have created chaos in those two states. You know, and Bola Ige foresaw it, and that was what saved us. So
okay, let me interject here, Prof.
It shouldn't be. The people that are trying to impose those things, they don't also mean well. Senator Adamu Alero, former governor of Kebbi, was the ringleader of those that brought it up because he's not in good terms with his governor.
Absolutely.
And then he now turned it into a national agenda.
So Prof is a politician, I don't know. So Prof, you are a politician, I don't even know.
You don't know that I've been in I've been part of the formation of three major parties in this country, CPC, with Buhari, okay. Malam Suleyama, Engineer Abubakar Adima, and General Muhammadu Buhari. We were the ones who formed CPC. And APC, okay. I was also a pioneer member on the table where it was being formed. So but I'm a political scientist primarily, but I always engage the political process intellectually to have better people to run our affairs. I've been in 3 presidential campaign council. 2011, I was there in CPC. 2015, 2019, I was there in the presidential campaign council of Buhari. So I know what they do, okay. And what they cannot, what they can do, and what they cannot do.
Professor, let me just interject here now. Moving away from the political parties, how can Nigeria actually improve their leadership selection process?
Question to who?
Professor, I said Professor.
Okay, well, you see, if I'm to talk as a political scientist, I think it will be better. Because if I just want to talk like just a pedestrian commentator, I will say, our people should always have the fear of God in them when they want to elect their leaders. And leaders too should believe that one day they will give account to God and all those things. I've told you that the sanctity of the ballot box is paramount when you want to talk of the people electing good leaders. That is where it starts from. For as long as you have those who can buy their way through being involved in politics, because the loopholes are so wide to be exploited, the issue of having good leadership will continue to remain a mirage. Our focus should be to have a sound electoral system, a foolproof electoral system.
And how do we go about creating this electoral system?
Well, we are talking about the use of technology. That is very, very important. For instance, at the level of accreditation, we can check multiple voting by ensuring that your biometrics are cross-checked. If the biometric systems are in place and they are working, that will immediately check a situation where you have results that are more than the number of registered voters. That will never happen. Then we now have a situation where you know that people's votes will count. And that is why gradually you see some politicians, they will have agents at a polling station that when you want to print the paper, just signal me as you done it. Let me see whether it's for my party. If it's for my party, as you are leaving the place, you collect 5,000 naira. We also need to deal with that. I will want us to commission invention of a technology that will be more suitable to our purpose. I want a situation where we won't even need to use that ink anymore. A situation where maybe you just go there and punch a button. Maybe all those parties, we have a button, or like my computer is in front of me now. Each of this keyboard should maybe carry the logo of a party. So when you get there, and then you are in a kind of an enclosure, nobody sees what you're actually punching. So if it is the party's logo is umbrella, you go there and punch the umbrella. Any idiot can do that. If it is broom, you punch broom. If it is kokoroko, the apuga, you go and punch the cock and you punch it. And if we can have, because let me tell you something, most of the systems, we are just copying them here and there. You need to, every political system has got to evolve a system that suits its purpose, its ecology. That is just a quick illustration of what can be okay for us. If we can have a kind of device that you just punch, there is nothing like collecting ink on your hand or carrying paper. It will even be a lot cheaper. So that the moment you punch it...
Prof, Kaduna State applied that in its local government elections this year. Did you follow up?
Well, I saw what Erufai was trying to do, but I'm trying to see, did any opposition party win in any of the local governments?
They won about 5 local governments, like 5 local governments.
Okay, that's good. Then we should try and see how that can be replicated at the national level. I would like to know more about it.
And the truth, Prof, the truth is, where those political parties, the opposition won, it was clear that everybody knew that the opposition was the strongest party in those local governments, about 5 local governments.
Then that is something we need to escalate.
And exactly what you have explained, now was what Erufai used in the election, that you just come and see the logo. You're not seeing name. You are just seeing the logos, and you just punch the logo, and a ticket will come out. And that ticket means you have voted. So you pick your ticket, and it will be 2 tickets. One falls in, and one comes out for you to carry. In case of any court process, you have a ticket to present that I voted. You know. So I think I've not sat down to study how he did what he did, but at least when I heard that the opposition won like 5 local governments, I understood that it's a bit fair process.
Okay, that is quite remarkable. I observed it from a distance, and I felt the outcome would, tell us whether it is really worthwhile or not.
All right, let us hear from Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hassan?
Yes, Neka.
Yeah, so how do you think
you went off for a while? How do I think?
Apart from what
your voice is off. Neka, your voice is down. I think you have an issue with your mic.
Mr. Hassan, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes. I can hear you. Go ahead. Prof?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, you are clear too?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
So your question?
I said that how do you think that Nigeria can improve its leadership process, apart from what the professor has already said?
What the prof said is actually the only part.
That part is electoral reform and internal party reforms. Once we have electoral reforms, it will be very difficult. For example, let me give an example. It will be very difficult for a Bala Muhammad that is facing corruption trial in the courts now go to Bauchi State and contest election and win the gubernatorial election. It will be very difficult for a Fintri in Adamawa State that is facing corruption trial in 2014 and now went to Adamawa State to take the ticket of the PDP, contested election in 2019 and won, and he's now a sitting governor. So, but when you now have a reform of the electoral process and an internal party reform, I think we will do better. We will do very much better. There are a lot of things to put in our electoral processes that will deter any corrupt mind or any scavenger coming on to take on tickets purposely because they want to shield themselves with that immunity of not going to court when they are governors or when they are presidents.
All right, remember that you can join this conversation simply by raising up your digital hand. Try to accommodate as much questions and comments as possible, but our time is fast spent, so we're just going to take very few questions and comments. Let me ask you this, Mr. Hassan. Right now, some African countries have witnessed a military coup, and according to domino effect, this can affect Nigeria. And also, as the professor said, analysis is showing that Nigeria is due for an implosion. How can this predicted implosion be prevented and our democratic institutions be strengthened?
You see, I don't see it happening in Nigeria, Neka. I don't see it happening in Nigeria because I think we are a bit more mature than those countries that had coups in the last few months. We're a bit more mature, and of course we had our own challenges, you know, and I think we've grown past those challenges. And Nigeria of today cannot tolerate any military coup or military intervention. So I think we've passed that level for now. And
okay.
Okay.
No, go ahead, conclude, please.
I'm done. Go ahead. You want to ask something?
All right, Professor.
Yes.
From the picture you painted, Nigeria's democracy of 20 years, 22 years now, has been nothing to write home about. Do you see democracy as in our 20 years future? Do you think that Nigeria will still be practicing democracy come 20 years time?
Well, that is if Nigeria itself will remain in 20 years' time. Because let me tell you, social science is scientific because of its predictive capability. You can predict social phenomena because you have backlog of history to learn to extrapolate from. And you have the raw materials of human behavior, which you can collate through fora like this, where we are discussing, where you listen to TV conversations, radio conversations, newspaper commentaries. If a country is going to be stable, it is the people therein, their attitude, their mindset, their thinking, their fears, etc., that will give you the correct barometer to make that projection. I have often said that when you are talking of human behavior, you should never say nothing is impossible. If the conditions are ripe, a coup d'etat can happen anywhere. And in Africa here, we have seen it happen here and there. It has happened in Mali, it has happened in Burkina Faso, it has happened in Sudan, it has happened in Egypt, and it's going on here and there. If we don't get our acts right with the level of insecurity in the country today, whereby to travel from one town to another has become hazardous, where kids are being kidnapped in their schools, people go to church for a night vigil, and in the early morning, people get kidnapped inside churches, People are getting raped inside mosques. And you are telling me we may not have a coup d'etat. I am telling you, the way things are today, we don't pray for it. But if it happens, a lot of people will jubilate, especially the generations that did not witness military rule before, and they are in the majority. So we should only hope that it won't happen by doing the right things. Now, what we can do to de-escalate tension. If somebody can have the ears of President Buhari is running the affairs of this country as if it's an imperial majesty. He's an emperor that was not elected. He doesn't listen to people at all. He has too much confidence in the use of force. He believes that the only way to get people to do his bidding is to force them. But things don't work that way. Look at how many new fronts have been created. ISWAP now is using radio broadcast in Niger State. That's not Nnamdi Kanu. And who said so? The secretary to the government of that state said so, that they've told their people through their radio broadcast, their mission is to Islamize the state in their own brand of Islam. And then you have states where farmers are paying taxes to bandits to go and plant and to go and harvest in a country that is supposed to have a government. So with this situation, we never had even 1/4 of this level of insecurity in the past when the military will take over. So we can only pray that they will not try it. But if they should do it, as a political scientist, with the way I've gauged the mood of the people, the generation that did not witness, that they were not grown-ups when it took place, they will troop to the streets. Because when they will do, they will come with some sugar-coated tongue to tell us, they will paint a gloomy picture of what has happened, and you'll be nodding your head. That is true, that is true, that is true. Fellow Nigerians, something just has to give way. And but I'm not praying for them because I know they are smart Alex. But if we don't want that to happen, we should do the needful to de-escalate tension. The security challenge itself, we need a roundtable to discuss it because there is a lot of sabotage that we hear is happening. Military officers will be going to carry out an operation, ambush will be laid to them. Who are the people leaking this information? And we are losing our highly prized officers and men. So we need a roundtable. The situation of this country has gone beyond what the mental magnitude of President Buhari alone can cope with, or a handful of people he surrounds himself with who don't love this country. He should throw his door open for us to have a sort of national dialogue on security, on our unity, on our economy, because nothing is working. If we can do that and you allow people to come, we have brilliant people in this country. We have highly gifted people in this country, home and abroad. Let us tap from their brains, and that will save us. But to assume that, we have reached a stage where that cannot happen again, we delude ourselves.
All right. Before I call on Hygienist Anedo, let me just ask you this, Mr. Hassan. Mr. Hassan.
Nick, I'm here.
All right. What do you think about rotational presidency or zoning when it comes to presidency?
Yeah, it's okay. We are a diverse country, and the presidency shouldn't be going to just a particular zone and you think it'll be okay. It will never be okay. So, but I think that's a party thing, it's an agreement within the parties, but of course there is need for spreading the positions to other zones. If a particular zone has had the presidency for 8 years, we need to look out to other good hands in other zones to now come and give their own quota.
I see it as giving service, not as it's my turn, you know. It's my turn to be president, so I have to be president. I don't like that idea, but I believe in equality, and I believe in spread in picking up people that will preside over the affairs of this country. But I really don't believe it's my turn to be president. So whoever it is in my place will just come and be president, and I'll be fine with it. Just as Prof said, I'm telling you, and he was very right. 60, not even maybe more than 60% of Northerners today complain about the presidency. In fact, when they now say some people are of the opinion that it stays in the north, or maybe they go to vote for PDP since PDP is zoning to the north. Some people will tell you that what has Buhari done to us in the last 8 years? He's a northerner and we're northerners. A lot of people are of that opinion. The perception out there, you need to just speak with people. So when I hear southerners saying it's the north that is president that is ruling, you know, and he doesn't like us, he only likes the north. When you listen to northerners talking, you now start laughing. So when I heard Prof saying people from the north saying all those kind of things, I understand that he speaks widely and he consults widely with people around the country. So I think it's okay for peace to reign and inclusiveness. It's okay to go to our regions in search for a competent and credible hand to preside over the affairs of the country.
All right, Prof, briefly, please, what do you think about rotational presidency?
My sister, I don't believe in it. Before, I used to think it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. Because there are people where I come from now, they are saying, it's the turn of that one particular politician is going to take over from Buhari. And each time they discuss it, it irritates me. I say, so if he takes over from Buhari, what magic will he perform? If he gets there, it will just be the Yoruba people that will benefit will be those around him, which does not include you and I. So, and then he will go there, whatever error of omission or commission he commits, we will collectively bear the brunt of it. They will say, hey, see what the Yorubas have done, when actually we do not agree with him. So for me, I prefer that we restructure this country and devolve power massively from Abuja. Abuja is the fulcrum of corruption because Abuja is biting more than what it can digest. And that is why there is this overheated debate about rotational presidency, about power shift and other, where you make the power at the center to be so minute, left to things that are just, we need in common. Maybe the issue of common defense, issue of foreign affairs, all this issue about education, health, mining of minerals and all the rest of it, devolve them to the states that have those things and let them pay some taxes or percentage to the central force for common services. So that nobody will be talking or saying they are taking their oil and all the rest of it. There's nobody in the country that cannot survive, no section. There's no state that is not highly endowed. The northern states, when you want to talk about natural resources, they are flush with mineral resources. More than KB has uranium that is used to generate electricity for nuclear weapon and all the rest of that. Has it ever been tapped? And how many people knew that Zamfara has gold on this scale, if not for the illegal gold trade going on there? So they have the luxury of land, and the land is good for agriculture. So let nobody deceive anybody that unless you take VAT from Lagos or you take oil from rivers and lazy. You are not going to survive. Let all these things be devolved, of course, within a transitional period, because a lot of us, even Ekiti, they also depend on the oil too, so that it won't be as if we want to bankrupt some states all of a sudden. But then there'll be a transitional period that progressively these things will be transferred. The authority over them, the control over them will be transferred to the states that have them in this percentage year by year. Therefore, begin to think of alternative means of survival by harnessing your own resources, both human and material, and so that Abuja will be lean. You will discover that when you do that, the center for the struggle for power will now be in the state or the regions, as the case may be. It wouldn't be in Abuja. In those days, in the First Republic, you discover that somebody like Sir Ahmadu Bello, he was the leader of Northern People's Congress. Ideally, he was supposed to be prime minister, but he seconded his deputy to Lagos in the person of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa to be prime minister. Why? Because the resources and the power he controlled as the premier of the North was more than whatever Tafawa Balewa was going to control in Lagos in terms of resources. The regions were funding the federal government. 20% of their total IGR was sent to the center. There were even years when the Western region gave grants, that is like a donation to the federal government. All these things are documented. Go to federal archives. You will see them there and you will open your mouth and you'll be shocked. So that is the kind of era, that kind of regime is what we need, whereby the power is highly devolved so that nobody will give a damn. The president will be virtually more or less a ceremonial president because there will be very little for him to, in terms of his budget, in terms of his powers. States will be running the police because all criminality is local and therefore policing should be local. The power to control police will be localized. And then the power to, if I need gold in Zamfara, I won't need to go to Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals in Abuja. I will have to go to Zamfara State Ministry of Solid Minerals as a businessman, as an investor. That is where I will get all the papers I need and all the licensing I need. I will not go to Abuja for something that is in Zamfara. So if we do that, the idea of rotational, you won't even care. If it is the Igbo that wants to produce president 3 times running, most people will not look there because the patronage is not there. The big offices are not there. So people will have to go and slug it out in their respective states or region. That is the only way forward for this country, as far as I'm concerned. We've tried this method right now, and we have discovered that it has failed. And it's leading us further and further into perdition. God forbid.
All right, let us hear from Hyginus Anedo. Hyginus.
Okay, thank you, Neka. Good evening, everyone. Honestly, I think I still have hope in Nigeria. Listening to these 2 gentlemen that came here, Prof and Al Hassan. So I have 2 questions. One to the Prof and the other to Al Hassan. The topic of today is managing suitable and efficient democracy for Nigeria. I have a question for the Prof. My first question is, do you think in Nigeria we are practicing convenience democracy or true democracy? By convenience democracy, I mean democracy that suits us, that deviates from what a true democracy is.
Nigerian democracy.
So that's number one. Then to Al Hassan, I was happy when he said he is a member of APC. I too, I'm a member of APC, but I think I'm doing some thinking around the party because when I returned to the country and APC, I took time to study the manifesto of APC and that of PDP. and that informed me to choose APC as my political party. In APC manifesto, number one there is that the party will initiate action to amend our constitution with a view to devolving powers, duties, and responsibility to the states and local governments in order to entrench true federalism and the federal spirit. I love that statement. The second one says the party will endeavor to strengthen INEC to reduce and eliminate electoral malpractices. More importantly, it said that the party is going to attract and brightest into our politics and public services by aggressive recruitment of private sector people, academics, and professionals within Nigeria and in diaspora. Then again, it went ahead to say the party should amend the constitution to remove immunity from prosecuting for elected officers in criminal cases. And the talk of the day is to restructure government for a leaner, more efficient, and adequately compensated public services, among others. But these are the key 4 things that I said, if anybody or any party should do this, we will be near what we call true democracy, that will bring out Nigeria to its place, its position in Committee of Nations. So my question to Hassan, after Prof will address the issue whether we are practicing true democracy or democracy of convenience, is that can he now say that APC should be a party that Nigerians should trust in the year 2023 to manage suitable and efficient democracy in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you. Let us hear from the 2 guests, and then we'll take one more question and we will conclude. Professor.
Okay, the question to me is whether he's asking whether I think we are practicing convenience democracy or a true democracy. Convenience democracy is like when you say you have a marriage of convenience. That is when you are just doing what you like, you know, not necessarily what is ideal or that is what is right. That is, you know, I think what he means by convenience democracy, or whether it is the true democracy. Well, there is no universal model of a democratic system, how it should be. That's why you have some people, some countries, they practice constitutional monarchy, like Great Britain. You have a country like United States, a Republican presidential system. And then you have countries like Switzerland, they practice what we call constitutional democracy, where the various cantons that constitute the country are represented in a presidential council, the 7 cantons, just like we have 6 zones in Nigeria, and then you now maybe have a presidential council in Nigeria that that rotates annually. The chairmanship of that council will rotate annually among the members. That's what Switzerland practices, such that Switzerland is one country that many of its citizens don't even know who their president is, because within a year, it has shifted to another member of that presidential council. But that is Switzerland. What I'm trying to say, in effect, is that every country, given its own peculiarities, must evolve its own unique form of democratic system. But the principle that is universally applicable to all democracies is the principle of, there are 2, the principle of representation and inclusiveness. By representation, it means that those who actually run the affairs of government, they are indeed people elected by the people to represent them. Inclusiveness means no section is left behind, maybe because they are small in size. In Switzerland, that I used as an illustration, for instance, there are 4 lingua franca, and all of them are available for use for official purposes and for schooling. French, German, Italian, and Romansh. It's a country of about 5 million people. The people speaking Romansh, I don't think they're up to 100,000. But for inclusiveness sake, that language is also recognized for schooling within the area where its speakers are predominant. In Canada, you have 2 major, they have 2 lingua franca, English and French. Out of about 6, is it not 6 or 7 provinces that they have? 7 provinces. 6 are English speaking. Only 1, Quebec, speaks French. But when they discovered that Quebec wanted to agitate and leave the country, rather than allow that to happen, they had to accommodate Quebec, that because the people in Quebec are not willing to subordinate their French heritage to English language. That's where the white man is different from us. No matter how small, they will never accept the overlordship of another. And then as a compromise, it was agreed that Canada, for the sake of just 1 province, will adopt 2 lingua franca, French and English. So in Nigeria, we are not different from any section of the human race. We have the same, we are susceptible to our fears. We are susceptible to having, desiring inclusion to be part of how our life is being governed. Therefore, the true democracy for Nigeria will be that democracy that will afford inclusiveness to the smallest ethnic group in Nigeria, like the Ogoni, a situation where we have a framework that accommodates them, right from River State, where they are domiciled, up to the central government level. They should. So that is what we need. And right now, what we simply have is a carbon copy of the American model that does not totally suit our own peculiarities. And that is why those who are saying, let us restructure, they are deep thinkers who have realized that things are wrong. If you restructure the way it should be done, by allowing people to come to the table and tell us exactly what they want, then all this agitation, all these shouts of injustices and all the rest of it will be a thing of the past, and all of us will then be focused on the more important task of good governance and development. So, in summary, I will say that we are not practicing, we are practicing, we are at the starting point of a democratic journey. We have not arrived there yet. We are still evolving, but we should not allow conservative forces to hold us to ransom by saying that where we are is perfect and there is need for no adjustment. The ideal is that true democracy, and that true democracy is that democratic framework that will afford everybody a sense of belonging and true representation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's just listen to the second question answered by Mr. Alwan Hassan.
Yeah, Nneka, my question was purely partisan. My brother in the APC asked the question if I'll advise anybody to vote for the APC in 2023. Yeah, I will. And of course, we are better than other parties, no matter what our challenges and whatever we are facing today.
we're better than other parties, and we have better candidates to vote for in our party than any other party. And he talks about a manifesto on true federalism and amendment of the constitution, which is ongoing. There is the El-Rufai committee that has presented a very wonderful and beautiful document on true federalism, which has been with the president, I think, since 2018 or 2019 or so. That document, I want him to take a look at it, and he would believe that people that wrote our manifesto actually meant what they wrote in the manifesto.
I was one of those who wrote the manifesto. I was one of those that wrote that manifesto. Yes.
Prof, have you had opportunity to look into El-Rufai's True Federalism report?
I have the document. It's available online.
Okay.
He did a good job. He taught the country and he collated the views of the various zones of the country, including states, state by state, and he did a very, I'm sure he made very good use of good statisticians. They summarized it in statistical forms and in figures, mathematical forms. But the unfortunate thing is that the president of the country, the president who won an election, on the basis of that same manifesto of restructuring, has refused to touch it. Are you not bothered as a member of APC?
I am bothered.
That is the root of the present crisis in the country. If only he has kept faith with that element of the party's manifesto, we would be in a better position than we are in now. Hopelessness among people is killing the country.
It was submitted, I think it was submitted like 2018.
Yes.
Was it 2018? It was submitted in 2018.
When Chifoyegu
was
was
party
the
chairman.
The President Buhari in his 2018 December New Year address has he lambasted those of us talking about restructuring as if it's not in his party manifesto.
Mr. Hassan, kindly conclude. We are out of
the
time
other
already.
one. Okay. Do I continue, Neka?
Please conclude, please.
Okay. And then the other part of constitutional review, and I think it's ongoing. My brother should know that there is a constitutional review ongoing, headed by the Deputy Senate President. So if anyone has any document to present or as an amendment or something to add in the Constitution or something to remove, one can just track the public hearing or go to submit whatever document you have in the office of the Deputy President. And I think it's still ongoing. I don't know if Prof knows about it, and maybe
brother, let me tell you, this is the 9th assembly. All the assembly, from 1st assembly, 2nd assembly, 3rd, all of them did this same thing that they are doing now. When Ike Ekweremadu was the Deputy Senate President, he did the same thing.
Thank you so much. Let us listen to Mazi Okoye. Mazi Okoye, please be as brief as possible. Mazi Okoye.
Thank you, Neka. And thank you, Prof. And thank you, Hassan. Sometimes when we discuss these issues, especially democracy, we tend to, modulate up with a lot of other topics.
Sorry, I went off on the other one. I hope I responded well to what you wanted to hear.
Yes, you're all right. Let us listen to Mazi Okoye. Mazi Okoye.
Okay. Thank you. So my point being that democracy is not really about political parties. Democracy is about human dignity and human well-being. And these things are measurable. These things can be measured. And this is where I have a problem with Prof's definition of consolidation in Nigeria, that democracy has been consolidated in Nigeria. Because I don't think a mere competitive election or transfer of power, peaceful transfer, or the semblance of peaceful transfer of power justifies or supports that theory of consolidation. Because what we have in the country is a structure of 36 states, with over 700 local governments. From my own point of view, is actually an incentive for what we are seeing, corruption that we are seeing, and impunity that we are seeing going on in the country. So I think Prof was a bit, contradicting himself there by saying that democracy has been consolidated. At the same time, on the other hand, listing myriads of, what actually contradicts the consolidation that he mentioned earlier. So my question to Prof is, does consolidation means where you have a few individuals in power on top, exchanging power from one hand to one hand, do you call that consolidation? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Let me quickly
Prof, please be as brief as possible. We are totally out of time.
Okay, let me just answer you. I think you are taking me out of context, really, because I said, let me start. I'm a professor of political science, and you cannot take away theory from me. So I said in the aspect of political science, a subfield called democratic studies, that scholars will look at the democratic journey of Nigeria based on two criteria: 20 years uninterrupted experience of democracy, and another criterion is transfer of power from a ruling party to an opposition party. When those two things happen, the scholars in that subfield would say a country has consolidated democracy. It is in a context. Then I now went on to also say that as far as I am concerned, that is just a superficiality. Then I now reeled out a number of things about the economy, about insecurity, that negates that position. That yes, we are not having, and I also subsequently warned that even military coup can still happen if something is not done to reverse the regressive trend in which we have found ourselves in terms of insecurity, in terms of economic, underdevelopment and all the rest of that. So I did not just say that in a tabula rasa. I said it in a context and I qualified it.
All right, thank you. Let us just listen a bit to Mr. Hassan, and then we'll round up. Mr. Hassan, any closing remarks?
Yeah, my closing remarks. We need to have a national social conversation. We need to have a national purpose. As Nigerians, we need to understand. All hands needs to be on deck in finding a national purpose, in building and agreeing on the kind of Nigeria we want to live in. So I think I align with a lot of things that Prof have said, and it's a process, and no matter what anyone says about the delay in the process, we would surely get there. That's my belief. I'm very optimistic about Nigeria getting to the promised land.
All right, Professor, we'll take your closing remarks. Professor.
Well, I just want to make an appeal that the present administration should think of throwing its door open to some form of national dialogue. I told you I have a master's in peace and diplomatic studies, and I mentioned two twin concepts of conflict escalation and conflict progression. And I said there are early warning signs, CWS, that shows that the country is headed for an explosion. And I cannot sit here in this country and know what I know and not use every avenue I have to offer this advice. There is need to de-escalate tension by allowing people to come together and voice out their grievances so that we can collectively chart a way forward. It is only by so doing that we can enjoy this democracy that is a situation where you don't have the khaki people ordering you around continually. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is what we can take on today's interview. We have been talking about managing a suitable and efficient democracy for Nigeria, especially thanks to our guest, Mr. Alwan Hassan. He's a public policy professional and social commentator, also the CEO of our staff group and a politician. Thank you so much, sir, for coming today.
My pleasure.
And also thank you, Professor Femi Olufunmilade, the political scientist, pioneer director, Buratai Center for Contemporary Security Affairs, Igbinedion University of Edo State. To the past head of the Department of International Relations and Strategic Studies and Dean, College of Arts and Social Science. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
And remember that we're going to have a 15 to 30 minutes heart-to-heart conversation after this interview. It will stop being recorded and live streamed. So we're asking
heart-to-heart in this now? Neka. What is heart?
Okay.
Which one is heart-to-heart?
Yeah, please, if you can stop, Neka, please stop the recording, please. You are the host. Stop the recording and stop the live streaming, please. Okay. I'm unable to do it now. I'm trying to.
Dan.
Yep. Stop the live streaming too.
So which one is heart-to-heart? Which one is heart-to-heart?
You will soon find out, sir.
Where is Mazi? How to stop this live streaming.
Are you able to stop the live streaming?
Where is Mazi?
No, I'm not. I'm not able to stop the live stream.